This is the first part of, we're going to be talking a lot about visual optimization, a lot about conversion optimization today. We'll make sure we take a few breaks throughout because there's going to be a ton of content to get through. This is the area of selling on Amazon that I am the most passionate about. I love this stuff. I've been doing this literally for years. And yeah, for everyone in the US, I hope you voted. And let's get into the presentation. So I'm going to go over and share my screen. And I'm going to share this whole window over here. I'll be sure to check in with the chat every so often just to see if there's any like low-hanging fruit. We'll talk about like how to ask questions, how to answer questions. I'm just going to get myself a little bit more lined up over here. So the title of today's presentation is Leveraging AI for Data and Better Listings. We're going to be covering a lot of different things. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anthony Cofrancesco. I'm the Director of Business Development at DataDive. I've been in the Amazon industry since 2017. I actually launched my first product on Amazon before starting a full-time job at Amazon. I worked there for about a year. If you've ever visited a North America fulfillment center and you've had to go through x-ray machines on your way out of the fulfillment center, I actually put that together as my white paper as an intern in TPA 1. So I love Amazon. I think it's still a huge opportunity. I think Amazon can be a little bit naughty sometimes, but it's still an amazing opportunity even today. After working at Amazon, I moved to the Philippines, to Manila, and I helped run a creative agency for a little over 2 years called Virtuous Graphics. We had a team of 25 full-time creatives, graphic designers, videographers, photographers, copywriters, and I exited that business in 2019. Then I moved over to a market research tool called PickFu. I worked there for about 2 years, got to work with some of the biggest aggregators and agencies in the industry. It really just getting the name of PickFu out everywhere and the importance of split testing and market research. After that, I came over and joined DataDive and Seller Systems. I've been here almost 3 years now. And again, really focus a lot on content, on building out our sales team, and still get my hands dirty quite often with, helping out on different projects. One really big case study we're going to be highlighting today, and we've been working on it for like more than a year. So that's enough about me. This is what we're going to cover in the masterclass today. So we'll do a little bit of an introduction on AI tools for beginners. We'll talk a little bit about basic image planning requirements and some simple photography briefs, how to come up with concepts that you can hand off to your internal team or a team of graphic designers. We'll spend some time doing like visual optimization techniques and best practices and things that don't require as much AI or split testing. And then we're going to do an overview of A+ content and basically everything that goes into that. So I'll take a few breaks. Maybe after each section, I'll stop. So you can feel free to ask any questions that you'd like. Also, at the end of this presentation, there's going to be a link to a survey. Really helps us if you can fill it out. And every month we give away prizes randomly to people who participate. So let's start off. I know everyone wants to know about AI, and I'm going to cover a little bit of that today. Here's my thought, is that number one is AI most likely is going to take over the world. Hopefully it's going to be in a good way, but we're absolutely not there yet. And that applies to creatives. There's definitely not a point where, at least right now, where a lot of the work that's done for creating listings is going to be replaced by AI. So the point that I'm going to make is don't fire your agencies, don't fire your staffs, and don't think that programs like DALL-E and Midjourney are going to be replacements for actual design talent. I was talking with our videographer, John, this is about a year ago, and we were looking at some of the most advanced AI programs out there. And I think he gave a really accurate quote. Don't think that these AI tools are going to hand you 20 years of experience in one click. Now, while AI is not going to replace everything you're doing, there certainly are some very powerful applications, especially in the realm of concepting and idea generation, that are extremely impressive and that I use on almost a daily basis. And I know our design team for Brandon's products does as well. And so I would say priority number one is empower your team to, or the agencies that you're working with, to utilize AI tools that they're already experts in. And so we're going to cover a little bit of Midjourney today. That's my favorite. DALL-E is quite similar. But if you're a real professional and you're watching this call, maybe someone from your organization said, hey, go and check out this masterclass from Seller Systems. The programs that they're going to really love are like adding AI into graphic design tools that they're already using. So like Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. That's really where I think the most practical applications of AI in terms of getting something that's usable that you can upload onto your listing. There's some other programs out there as well that are getting really impressive, like Substance 3D, that is kind of recognizing what a 3D render of a product is and building environments around that. The reason I think at least most of the industry tools for Amazon and AI are not super advanced yet is that they don't fully recognize and understand what a product is and trying to build a scene around that. What AI is extremely good at is building scenes, building unique concepts, but really recognizing this is the product and this is how it interacts with the world around it. It's still, I think, a little bit too early on, especially in just like recreational use, unless you're a professional. Priority number two when it comes to AI, and I think this is the biggest, is leverage AI to build concepts that professionals can use to create usable assets. So none of the AI that I've seen, at least so far, is going to be ready to upload to an Amazon listing. It might get close, and in some niches that are less competitive, you might be able to win, but most likely every single asset that you create is going to have to at least touch hands of a designer, of a professional to get it ready to upload to Amazon. And yeah, I haven't really seen too many examples of where that's not the case. Now, AI will definitely speed up the workflow of your designers. It'll definitely help your creatives generate more and more concepts, but it's not anywhere close, I think, at least a couple of years out from replacing anyone's job. Now, what I'm going to cover, at least in the beginning right now, we'll get into some image optimization best practices a little bit later on, is a reasonable workflow that you can use to start concepting images using a combination of the AI on Data Dive and then some of these generative image creators like Midjourney. This product, rather, has been out for more than a year now. It's called our AI product brief. And what it allows you to do is, in just a few minutes, our AI program will go through and read all of the reviews, all of the product detail pages for up to 10 competitors, and it's going to tell you a handful of things about the product, like what customers like, most important features, customer avatars, things like that. And so the example that I have up on this screen here is for a cat tree. I use this example all the time in Data Dive office hours. And the process for creating this brief is extremely simple. So on the left-hand side of your screen, there's some toggles. If you use the check all toggle, it'll select the top 10 competitors. And you just click on the button for analyze the selected competitors. You give it like 5 to 10 minutes, keep working in the background, or get yourself a cup of coffee or a Coke. And then like magic, it's going to have it read and analyze all of the reviews, the information on the product detail page, and it's going to tell you things like what are the most important attributes, what are the most important features of the product. So in this case, we're looking at a cat tower, a cat tree, and we see that people want to know about the different features. Like, does it have a climbing wall? Does it have a scratching post? Does it have a hammock? The ability of this product to help cats exercise and be active. Do they have nice snuggly perches and like areas that the cats can sleep in? On top of that, we have what do the customers like about the product? So things like easy assembly. Is it sturdy? Is it good quality? What's the sizing? Does it have good instructions? It's going to tell you what do customers dislike about the product. This is getting into the opposite of if it's sturdy, if it's wobbly, if it has missing parts. Does it have a larger platform for larger cats? It's going to tell you value-added ideas. We showed a little bit of this in the product development masterclass. So this is ways that you can improve the product. So enhancing the stability, making spacious, comfortable areas for if the cat wants to perch, having a really durable scratching post. And then we also have things like customer avatars. So this is based on review data, and it's like, this is who is most likely to purchase your product, different customer avatars. So we have like cat lover Lisa. It tells us a little bit about cat lover Lisa. We have busy professional Mike, apartment dweller Sarah. It even talks about where Sarah might live. She lives in a small apartment, wants a space-saving cat tree. She needs a cat that can fit into a corner, a cat tower that can fit into a corner, and it doesn't take up too much space. So you'll see how we leverage this into AI. The most practical applications, and this is what I personally use when using AI to make creative briefs, to create image concepts, is creating environments, creating shot lists, and then reverse engineering how the brain works and how the brain recognizes different images. So everything that I'm going to show next is done over a period of about 30 to 45 minutes. And I used about 30 different prompts and was able to get more than 8 usable ideas. Now, again, these are not usable ideas that I could upload into Amazon. I'm still going to have to hand them off to an internal team or hand the creative brief off to an agency so that they can bring these image concepts to life. So what you're going to see is a raw output. This has not been edited, and you're going to see the prompt above each set of images. And so the first one is what I explained earlier, using AI to create different environments. This is where your product would show up. It's not necessarily showing your product in use. And some of these environments could be usable, but most likely I'm going to use these as creative pegs to send to the design team, to send to the creative team and say, this is what I want to model, or I want something that looks similar to this. Again, I didn't go through many iterations with this. And so this is kind of the starting point. The cool thing about AI is as soon as I can enter a prompt, click enter, wait a few seconds, I can just keep doing this over and over and over again. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the AI product brief and I'm thinking, what are the important things that a customer needs to know before they buy this product? In this case, it's looking more about the scene. I'm thinking about those customer avatars. And the first 3 that I got came from the first 3 of that list. I wanted to see a busy professional. I wanted to see someone with a really cramped apartment. And then I wanted to see, like, what would a cat lover's house look like? And so on the left-hand side, you see house of a busy professional. And these are 4 different outputs that are given to me by Midjourney. Not all of these I love, but if I want to create images that are going to resonate with these customer avatars that the AI product brief is suggesting, I might say, you know what, I want to get the cat tree and I want to put it into an office and I want to have like a nice working chair. I want to have the computer, right? So like, I think these 2 graphics in the top right and bottom left are quite solid versus the top left and bottom right are more of a architectural look at this house. It's really not the interior. If I wanted to get a little more specific, I could always adjust my prompt to say interior of a house or of an apartment of a busy professional. Next, I wanted to get some inspiration for, let's think about someone who has a really busy, cramped apartment, and they're really curious about this cat tree. They love their cat. They want to give them the world, but they also want to conserve space. And so I really liked the image in the top right-hand side here, which was all of these plants, all of the surfaces were covered. It's the opposite of a minimalist design. There's things going on everywhere. And so I think if we could model this, whether with a real shoot, renting an Airbnb, or actually going in, setting up an apartment to look like this, it would be pretty impressive if we could fit a full-size cat tower somewhere in this apartment and show, even if you have the most crazy cramped apartment, you're still going to be able to fit this here. I also wanted to just get some inspiration. I don't think we'd ever go and build this out in a set, but look at this. I mean, this looks like it might be a crazy cat lady's house, aside from there's all of the pets here. But this is something that is going to click in someone's brain if you're a cat lover. It kind of matches that kooky decor style that me personally, I have a cat, but we have a very minimalist apartment. This could be something that you can switch around the creative, switch around the view to to make it a little bit more fitting. So the other application here is using generative AI to create visual shot lists that can actually be recreated in the real world. And so there's a few that I really like here. One of them was one of the key features of this product, which was a perch that the cat could sit on. And what I really liked about this is I really like these top left, top right zoomed in shots of the cat. When I look in deep dive at all of the competitor images in the niche, almost no one is doing a shot like this. It's always a zoomed out shot showing the entire product versus like zooming in and showing the cat in action. And this is one, the bottom left is something I wouldn't have thought of, but personally really like this. You want to show the scratching post, you want to show the cat climbing up this thing. And this is I think a really nice shot of putting the cat in action. What a designer would be able to do is create variations of this image and even place a cat in this position in your cat tower, in your cat tree. If you remember looking at the AI product brief, another really big area of concern was the stability of this product. And so I used the prompt, a fat cat on top of a cat tower. So I wanted like the fattest looking cat possible. I'm not sure if we would use this. It looks pretty realistic. I could go and upscale the image to look even more realistic than this. Or we try to go and find the fattest cat model that we can, showing even this big guy or girl up here, it's going to be no problem. It's not going to fall over. These two on the bottom don't really hit the mark, but I like these two up here. It's like a very fat cat, really relaxing. We also have this one. This is more related to if the product has a cat hammock. I wanted some inspiration for a cat relaxing in the sun, on a cat hammock, or in a cat tree. And so you can see here, this one just knocks it out of the park. If you're a cat owner, you've seen your cat doing this, they love sitting in the sun, they love the warmth. And so either using this shot and photoshopping it to look like it's your product, or trying to recreate this at sunset. You're doing this renting an Airbnb, or if your agency that you're working with has a photo studio, trying to recreate the sunlight on the cat's face. This one here, I like, it's kind of even got like a little bit of a smile. But if I could get like the sun shining and the glow of the sun setting, I think that would be even better. So again, none of these I'm going to use directly on Amazon, but for creating some concepts, this is just a few minutes of work. I think this is pretty powerful. Now, this next section is going to be a little bit abstract, so try to stay with me here. AI is trained on millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of images. And so what we're really looking at when we put a prompt into something like Midjourney is it's basically looking at all of these reference images, and it's just trying to predict what it thinks that we're looking for based on the prompt. And so in a lot of ways, what AI gives as an output is a reflection of what humans have already created, what humans have already built. And this is one of the really powerful applications of AI. We're going to get to this a little bit later in the presentation when I go through the best practices. But if you put in a little bit more general concepts and you just say infographic showing how something works, right? Or in this case, infographic showing how soft something is. Sometimes you're going to get ways of visual representation that you might not have ever thought of, but because the reference database for these AI models is so large, there's some reason that it's giving you this. There's some reason that it's making these images for you. And so it takes a little bit of abstract thinking to link what is shown on the screen here to what you might actually do. But let's say I've got this cat tower and people really care about how soft the fabric is. They care about how fluffy it is. They care about the density of the cushions to think, is this actually going to be comfortable for my cat? And so when I use a prompt like infographic showing how soft something is, it might not look like much, but now I can start to put together, what if we would like take the foam pieces apart, or we'd get like little scraps of, here's what the scratching post looks like. And we use this ultra minimalist design, and here's what the foam looks like. Or what if I start to like break down the density of the cushions and I say, okay, the top layer is like this faux fur, which showed up in the AI product brief. And that's like the top layer. Then it's like ultra high density foam, and it's like kind of squished in as the middle layer. And then the base is like natural wood maybe it's not actually made with wood, but it's like ultralight wood for sturdy construction. And then it's like showing me the bolts, and it's kind of this technical drawing, not nearly that dense of information, but it kind of just changes the perspective of my brain to think about how we might display in a different way, but it's going to click in someone's brain. Oh, they're trying to show me the different pieces of this. I tried another one with infographic showing strength of materials, and it showed me a lot of very technical images here. But again, if I'm thinking like, okay, I want to try to show that our cat tower is more sturdy than everyone else's, we might have the exact same nuts and bolts and pieces of wood. But if I draw it out in like this technical drawing, that the human brain, when you see a technical drawing, you're going to trust it, right? I'm not just taking a tagline and putting it at the top saying more sturdy than other brands. It's like, it's showing me, okay, this is what our bolt looks like. And you say like 3/4 inch steel bolt. And then you say like whatever type of wood. And you're putting this in a more technical drawing with like really small characters. Maybe it might be something that would work. It would be something that you'd have to test. The last thing that I tried on here was talking about the size of the platforms. And so I said infographics showing how large a platform is for sitting, bigger than everyone else. And it kind of showed me the same thing over and over again here, that in order to show the size of a platform, you really just needed to show a lot of things on it. And so obviously we're not going to use people when we're creating infographics for a cat tower, but likely what we want to do is show multiple cats all using the tower simultaneously. So if you can kind of link that together, okay, the goal is we want to show how large the platform is. What is this showing me here? It's showing me a lot of people or cats on the top of the platform. That's going to click right away in someone's head that this is a really large platform. If we're talking about the strength of materials, okay, if I show what all of the materials are and have a little bit of extra information, it's gonna tell me, okay, this is strong. Layers of how the materials are constructed, and it's talking about how soft it is. Some interesting design concepts here as well. Now remember, I just did this in about 30 minutes before we got onto the call. So if I wanted to go and create additional prompts with this, I could go deeper, deeper, and deeper. This is another really helpful application that not a lot of people realize you can use in Midjourney. And this is, instead of using the imagine to create a brand new prompt, a lot of people don't know this, that you can actually upload an image and then have Midjourney describe what that image is. And so what I did is I went into deep dive inside a data dive, and I found this sizing infographic, which honestly is a pretty decent sizing graphic. Aside from the title, it's a little strange calling it commodity parameters. I think this is a Chinese brand, but it's got like this person standing up. I don't know how big 50 is. I'm guessing 50 inches with the hands up. That seems kind of short, and then it's showing me that the cat tower is 54.7, and it's got basically everything on the cat tree that's labeled. And so inside of Deep Dive, where I can see all of the competitor image galleries in one spot, I just right click on the image, click Save As. I use the /describe function inside of Midjourney, and then I give it a few seconds, and then the Midjourney bot is going to describe what it thinks this image is. So I'm not going to read all of this, but you can kind of glance through and see it's giving me some sizing dimensions, and it's kind of describing what the product looks like. And it's going to give you 4 different options for this. You can choose whichever option you'd like. And what you do in the end is you click down here at the bottom and click on one of these numbers, and it'll create a new graphic based on this description. So what you can do with these prompts is you can pick and choose. Well, it's talking to me about like the different fonts. It's talking to me about, how, I don't know what PMC.NL written. I guess that's one of the sizing dimensions. Anyway, like I was saying, is you can choose, or I like to pick and choose pieces of these prompts and either put it together as my own, or just come down here to the bottom, click on one of these numbers, and it'll recreate the new one. Or you can also click Imagine All, and it'll make all 4 for you. So what do we get from all of this? We go from this image here. We actually get some really cool designs that are, in my mind, fantastic starting points for sizing infographics about the product. Now, none of these products are actually ours, but if we wanted to go, I really like, instead of having this drawing of just this woman standing up, this silhouette, I think it's much more effective. I like the people reaching up, showing how tall it is. It's giving a really good idea for space beyond just what the sizing dimensions are. What I also like that the AI pulled from these images is that the sizing is extremely minimal. So if you go over to this other design, it's showing me like this thing's 13 inches, this thing's 9.6. I think in terms of information density, it's actually a little bit over the top. So if I want to go the other direction in terms of information density, I think these are a little bit more effective, right? Just showing me how tall this thing is. Maybe one more that's going to show me how wide. We've got this shorter girl here that's like, putting her hand up. And I like that the AI was able to grab that. Now, inside of the niche for cat towers, cat trees, there's something like 10 or 15 different images that are all related to sizing. And so again, this doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of effort to right click, save as, and then you just pop all of these into Midjourney and say, hey, I want you to come up with a sizing infographic that's even better than this. Now, like I said earlier, you're not going to be able to take these and upload these directly into Amazon. You're going to have to still give it to a designer to do some additional work here, but we already have some great starting points for how the image should look. And what I like about these as well is it's not overly busy in the background. These are very minimalist. Like I love this, it's like this wood floor, light background, maybe some plants for accent, but like that's it. The point of this graphic is to focus just on sizing. So let me get into some of the other sections here. This is going to be basic image planning requirements and some simple photography tips. I'll just start with a little bit of a story. One of the reasons I think I approached Data Dive in the beginning is because I had this background on creatives from running the agency and working with PickFu, and I felt like I understood one part of the business really well, which is like this creative and concepting. But the part that I was missing out on was basically everything else. Like how does SEO and search work, listing optimization from a written perspective, and then the other side of the equation, like PPC. And I guess what I'll say is there's probably a handful of you on this call that are really good at that other side. You're really good at listing optimization. You're really good at running PPC, but you look at this creative stuff and you think, I can't do that. I could never do that. That's like magic. And I guess all I'll say to you is just like I started in one area of specialty, and I feel like after 3 years of Data Dive, I really understand the other half and have the most complete picture of selling on Amazon that I've ever had. You can do the same thing for creative optimization. A lot of people look at this stuff like it's magic, like it's a superpower, but really more than anything, it's just pattern recognition. I do not know how to shoot a camera off of manual mode. I do not know how to use Photoshop. I do not know how to use Illustrator. If you follow me on Instagram and you've seen all of the drone videos that I put out, I can fly a drone very well, but I do not edit my own videos. I send them to a videographer. His name is AJ in the Philippines, and he just takes whatever I put together and makes it look fantastic. With that being said, even though I don't understand exactly the technical sides of this, what you need to get better and better at is being able to look at something and honestly ask yourself, is this up to the level that it needs to be at? And be able to identify what is the difference between the images, the A+ content that you have, and then the best people in your niche, and being able to decipher, like, is this good enough to beat that? Or do we still have to keep going through more revisions to get there? And so I hope that what I'm going to explain today is going to help wrap your head around the process, and the best practice is really the essential framework to be able to start taking a more hands-on approach in your creative process. So this is what I'll show here. This is for a niche, probably one of the more competitive niches when it comes to selling on Amazon, and that is this garlic press. And so what I'll say about this niche is it's extremely competitive. If you look at the organic ranks for products in this niche, it's pretty much like all ones completely down the row, 2s, 3s, 4s. Out of the few sellers that we've included, almost everyone is indexed for 100% of the keywords in the master keyword list. if I were to go and look at the images in these galleries, everyone is really good. Everyone is really strong. And so what I'll say is if you go into Data Dive and your niche doesn't look like this, eventually it will. Over time, as Amazon gets more and more advanced and the barrier to entry and the barrier to optimization gets lower and lower, what's really going to differentiate products isn't so much the branding. It's going to be, is that product legitimately good? And how good is that brand at driving traffic to their listing and converting users? And so if you're able to take, I guess what I'm saying is if you're able to take action now on optimizing your main, secondary images, A+ content, and video, we have a limited amount of time before this whole thing will be automated and everyone is going to have amazing images. Everyone's going to have premium A+ content. Everyone's going to have hyper-personalized ads with different variations for each search term. We're not there yet. Right now, mostly it's just sophisticated sellers that are doing this. But I'm telling you, in the next couple of years, you're going to be able to click a button and everything that I'm showing you today, you're still going to have a human check it, but it's going to be largely automated and it's going to lower the barrier for most people to be able to get there. So the other thing to keep in mind when it comes to Amazon's ranking algorithm, and a big question that I get when it comes to conversion optimization is, what is a good conversion rate for an Amazon listing? And the answer is, like many things in life, it depends. The conversion rate that is good is going to be relative to your niche. So let's imagine that we have a 22% conversion rate. If we're in a niche where the average conversion rate is 15%, well, you're going to be overperforming relative to the average of the niche, and you can expect that over time, your organic ranks are going to go up. If you have a 22% conversion rate and you're in a niche that has an average of 25%, you're going to be about fair performance. You're going to expect your keyword ranks to stay roughly the same, if not maybe go down a little bit. But a 22% conversion rate, while that might be fantastic in a niche where the average is 15, if you're in a niche where the average is 45%, then you're going to be significantly underperforming relative to the average, and you can expect that your organic ranks are going to go down over time. The thing to keep in mind is that this is not going to be static for a niche. And I'll highlight a case study that we're going to show in the paid version of this masterclass. Essentially, what was happening is we had a seller that was the #1 seller in the niche. We're talking 30,000 reviews, organic keyword ranks #1 for pretty much everything. But even though they were the #1 dominant seller in that niche, over time, additional sellers came into that niche with fantastic creatives, great images, great A+ content. And what we saw is that the seller was losing market share every single month. Their revenue was going down every single month until the lowest point that we saw, their revenue was about $250,000 in a month. And so we revamped their A+ content. We revamped their secondary images. We revamped their main images. I shouldn't say we, it was a friend of mine who owns an agency, Share It Studio. They did all of the work on this, and they took that brand in 3 months from I don't want to misstate this, it was like a 2% click-through rate to a 3.5% click-through rate and a conversion rate of about 21.5% to 25%. And just those changes alone and some work on PPC as well, shout out to Quartile, took that brand from $250,000 a month. Their most recent month in October was the biggest they've ever had, $820,000 a month. And so essentially what was happening in that niche, this is actually a pretty good example, is maybe when they started, their images were fine. They were good enough to get by. It's like 1 main image, 3 lifestyle images, no infographics, no A+ content, no video. And so they're sitting along. They've got a great number of reviews. They've got a highly ranked product, and they're sitting there at a 22% conversion rate. And that allowed them to become the #1 seller in the niche. But instead of saying here, niche 1, niche 2, niche 3, think of like this as 5 years ago, 2 years ago, and then like 2 years from now. If they would have just stayed at that 22% conversion rate while the niche kept getting higher and higher and higher and higher, eventually they would have lost dominance in that brand, and it wouldn't matter if they had 30,000 reviews on the product. And then especially when they get to 2 years from now, if the everyone is able to copy exactly what they do and raise the bar again from like 25% to 35%, they're going to have to think again, do I need to update my images to stay competitive in this niche, to establish and maintain my market share? So keep in mind that doing this once, it might be good for a year, it might be good for 5 years, depending on how competitive your niche is. But the more often that people are testing and optimizing their creatives, the more you're going to have to think about, am I performing at, below, or above the average of my niche? And what do I have to do to maintain or grow in my position? The good news too is if you're able to come in, this is what's so cool about launching on Amazon. If you're able to come in with a brand new product launch and knock it out of the park with creatives from day one, and you come into a niche where the average conversion rate is 25%, and you're delivering a 35% conversion rate, it's not going to matter as much what your price is, how many reviews you have, because your organic ranks are going to shoot up so quick because you're so strongly outperforming the average of the niche. This applies to click-through rate, it applies to conversion rate, and it applies to your sales velocity or revenue. Okay, so what I have put together here, these are some pretty good best practices. And what these are based on is over the years, meeting people at conferences, getting on calls, people will say like, hey, Anthony, can you take a look at my listing? And I wanted to try to put together a framework that would be helpful for everyone, even though I wouldn't have time to look at everyone's listing. So this is like the culmination of hours and hours of analyzing people's listings and trying to find trends that are applicable to most products. What you're going to find on the Amazon platform is that you see the same thing over and over and over again in your niche. So while not everything I show is going to one-for-one correlate with your brand, there is going to be, I think, a significant overlap. And the reason why the advice I'm going to give you works is because of what I'm about to show you here. It's really just how the brain works. So what you should remember, and I know I say this in every single talk that I give about visual optimization, but this is science, this is true. The human brain is a giant graphics processor. It's like 90% of all of the information that's transmitted through your brain is visual. So while you're sitting there, yes, your brain is making your heartbeat. And yes, you can feel the chair that you're sitting on. And if you have a fan blowing, you can feel that, and you hear your computer fan running, and maybe there's some noise going on in the background. But believe it or not, the primary function of your brain is actually just processing visuals that are coming through your eyeballs. And that's 90% of everything that your brain is used for. So while you're watching me right now, I've got like a ring light in the background. I've got these two screens. I've got the rest of my room behind me. And my brain is processing all of that, although it's focusing most on the visual field in front of me. And I call this hacking the brain because it's literally like you have a USB or a Thunderbolt cable, whatever they are for Apple. And it's like if someone's looking at your listing, you're plugged directly into their brain and you're communicating with the key decision maker about whether they're going to buy your product or not buy your product. And this is happening faster than we even can perceive at a subconscious level. The human brain is going to process an image 70,000 times faster than text. And the reason this is so important for shopping on Amazon and conversion optimization is because when people land on the Amazon platform, the vast majority of the time, they're going to buy a product. In fact, the average conversion rate of a Prime shopper is 74%. So if you're looking at your listing at your conversion rate and you're saying, well, my listing doesn't convert at 75%, well, it's not saying that your product converts at 75%. It means if someone's looking for a cat tower, like 75% of the time, they're going to buy the product on Amazon's platform versus like leaving and going and buying it somewhere else. The drop rate is extremely low. And that's because by the time someone gets to Amazon, they type in cat tree or cat tower into the search bar, they already know that they want to buy this product. And the vast majority of times, they will buy the product, and it's either going to be yours or it's going to be someone very similar to what you're selling, if not the exact same thing. And so what convinces them to buy the product is going to come down almost exclusively to the visual signals that you have on your listing, not your title, not your bullet points, not anything else. It's going to be largely your visuals. The caveat to this is that we have this expectation that when someone's shopping on Amazon, they're the person on the left-hand side. They've got their credit card out, they've got a big smile on their face, and they're like totally zoomed in, zoned into your listing, reading all of your images, looking at all of your A+ content, watching your videos, reading all the reviews. But the reality is, and tonight is especially accurate, I'd be curious to see what the conversion rate and the view page time is on Amazon. The reality is people just want to get back on with their lives. They know that they want something. They want to get onto Amazon, find whatever suits their needs. They've got the phone going off, the kid running around in the background, there's elections going on, and they're super anxious. Or they just want to like get back to their life, right? And we have to be ready to communicate in a way that's extremely fast and extremely to the point, and it matches up exactly what that customer is looking for with what is shown in your listing. And so what we're going to want to do is tailor our listing to be effective in a distracted shopping environment. So if we have 6 images potentially in our gallery and the first one doesn't match the mark, there's a chance that that shopper is going to say, you know what, this product isn't for me, close the tab, let me go to another one. And then they ultimately end up purchasing your competitor's products, right? Same thing here too. If you have 6 images in the gallery and 3 out of the 6 do not match up with what the customer's looking for, they're going to bounce. They're going to find someone who explains that not everyone is going to get to image, in this case, 5 and 6 here, and ultimately say, oh, you know what? I'm glad I stuck around because I saw this here, or I saw it further down in the A+ content. It's just not realistic. And so what we want to try to do, this is a best practice, give extra attention to the images in position 2 and 3. These are going to have the larger view percentage of the images in your gallery. And for anyone that joins our masterclass next week, the paid version or free for anyone who's an inner circle, we're going to dig deeply into this, right? What are the processes for creating a good set of images, but then figuring out things like how should you be leveraging manager experiments to test image order? This is huge and it's very easy to do. So we put together this graphic here. This is not based on Amazon data. Amazon doesn't currently give us this data, but imagine 100% of the people who interact with your listing see your main image. And then by the time we get down to image position 6, there's some drop off. What we want to try to do is to prioritize our images so that images in position 2 and 3 are the most important, the things that the shopper needs to know most before buying the product. But we also want our image gallery and our A+ content to be interacted with in a way that allows someone to go through the listing quickly. And each time that they see the image, it clicks right away. This is what the purpose of this image is. And you don't make them work for it. And the goal is, if instead of you really have to spend 5 seconds or 10 seconds to analyze each image, and by the time I get 6 images into the gallery, I've already spent a minute. Who has a minute, right? If we can get these instead to be like, how can I understand the purpose of this image in like 1 second or 2 seconds? Now, not everyone has a minute, but everyone has 12 seconds. They can go 1, 2, cool. 1, 2, cool. 1, 2, cool. And so what we want to try to do is like shift this curve down so that our information, our images are easily digestible, and someone's going to get through the gallery in your A+ content faster. They're going to be able to absorb more of what they're seeing. And hopefully, if enough of these checkboxes are checked each time that they see an image, this is like thing number 1, thing number 2, thing number 3, 4, 5. Then they're like, okay, this one checks off the boxes, add to cart, back on with my life. We're going to cover this in depth in next week's masterclass. I'm really excited. It's going to be a lot more advanced than this. We have a whole workflow and a sheet that we give out. You can access the sheet even if you don't pay for the masterclass or are not an inner circle. You can find it at datadive.tools/workflows. But you're not going to get the deepest explanation and to see the case study of us actually putting it all together. But if you want to try to attempt this on your own, I think most people can figure it out. Essentially, what you're going to want to do when concepting images is think about everything I just explained and make yourself 3 different lists. List number 1 on the left-hand side is going to be the longest list. This is going to be all of the things that you could potentially say about the product. Features, benefits, materials, information about your brand. This list, and people ask me, hey, what should I do for my images? I'll tell them, go and make this list, bring it back to the booth to me tomorrow. And some people actually do this. It's pretty helpful. But this should be like anything. You shouldn't try to restrict yourself here. This is just getting ideas down onto paper. And this is a very, very long list of anything, everything you could say about the product. In the middle, you're going to get a smaller list. And this is, okay, here's everything that could be said. What does the shopper actually need to know about the product? Do they need to know on my cat tower that this ball hangs with this density or thickness gauge of string? Do they need to know the thread count of the cat hammock blanket that comes with it? I don't know. What do they actually really need to know? We saw some of these things already in the AI product brief, like how easy is it to assemble? Is this thing sturdy? Is it durable? Right? So we have a smaller list here, and then on the right-hand side is your smallest list. The reality is you're not going to have space to put everything that you would want to on the listing, nor should you. You want to try to get information in graphics that are not too overly dense, that don't have too much information. So you're going to have to pick and choose a little bit, and you're going to have to say, okay, well, here's everything that I think the shopper needs to know, but now an even smaller list of what do I actually have space for in the listing? What should go in my secondary image spot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? What should go in my A+? How should those two things be different? And a lot of this stuff you're going to have to put it off to later or test to see what is going to make it into the listing. So we'll also get into this next week, but if you want to try to attempt filling out the sheet that's in the data dive workflows, there's 2 different tests that I'm going to share with you and explain right now. There's a 3-point scoring test, and then there's a comprehension test. And so the 3-point scoring test is really easy to implement. This is meant to be objective, and it's based on what I just covered a few minutes ago about how the brain works and how it perceives information. And we've done this a couple of times at Camp Ecom and in a few different workshops that we hold on visual optimization around the world. And essentially what you do is you look at an image and you ask yourself these 3 questions, and you give yourself, you can do half a point in terms of scoring. So any image can get up to 3 points, but it can also get 0 points or a half a point. And so with every image, you're going to ask yourself, number 1, do I understand the purpose of the image? Number 2, are all of the concepts within the image related and cohesive? And then number 3, is the image visually impressive? Now, the last one on here, is the image visually impressive, is, in my mind, the least important. The flow of information is much more important than anything else. Like, how quickly can the brain look at an image and say, yep, got it, I understand the purpose of the image. Once you check off these first 2 boxes, then you can go and look and say, okay, does this thing actually look good? And this is why sometimes you'll be in a niche. There's like some Chinese seller, no offense against Chinese sellers, they do great. But there's a Chinese seller in your niche, and their images look like garbage. How is this person beating me? My images look so darn good. But then you run this 3-point scoring test against your products, and you find out, like, well, maybe my images are way too complicated, or it's just not clear what the purpose of this image is. And you go over to the Chinese competitor, and it's super minimal. It looks like they created this in Microsoft Paint or in Word, and they just threw a text headline on there. But it's simple. It's really easy to understand. It's easy for the brain to digest. And so I can't stress that enough. Flow of information is absolutely huge. So if you're inside of Deep Dive, that's the image analysis tool, inside of Data Dive, and you look at a niche, you're going to see the same types of images over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Just like with that cat tree example, there was something like 15 different versions of the sizing infographic. And so I could apply a score to each of those. What I've done here is, this is a different product. I like this one. This is for a neck pillow. And all 3 of these images are trying to do the exact same thing. They're trying to show you that it doesn't matter what position you put your head in, whether it's to the side, it's to the back, it's to the front, that this neck pillow is going to be comfortable. It's going to give you really good support. So even though all 3 of these images are trying to do the exact same thing, they're not all equal. So on the left-hand side, the first image that we see is good. It gets 1 point in my book. And the reason why it gets 1 point is because, number 1, I understand the purpose of the image. okay, it's trying to show me, or at least from the title, it's for 360-degree support. The reason it doesn't get the second point is because not all of the items in the image are related and cohesive. So there's parts of the image that are talking about the density of the foam. It's pointing out different areas of the product that have nothing to do at all with head position. This is, I think, the biggest area that I'll critique other people's images on, is that they're trying to address multiple things all within one image, multiple purposes, multiple concepts, versus saying, you know what, someone's shopping in that distracted environment. We don't want to confuse anyone. We don't want to distract anyone. Let's just focus on one thing at a time and not try to overload the viewer. The only time that we're going to cover multiple items all in one image is if there's some kind of theme or some kind of relation between those objects. And we'll cover that a little bit later in the presentation when we go through some image templates. So image number 2, this is going to be a little bit better. I give this one 2 points because I understand the purpose of the image, right? Showing me the different head positions. Everything in the image is related and cohesive. This is all talking about 3-way head support. This has some arrows around the product and it's showing me 360 degrees that I can put my neck. This is showing me the different head positions. Now, this image, I think I was being a little aggressive on. I could likely give it 2.5 points instead of 3, because I think there's some visual appeal for this. But I think this image on the right-hand side is going to get all 3 points. Number 1, I understand the purpose of the image. Number 2, everything in the image is related and cohesive. And number 3, the image is visually impressive. And how I'm going to do how visually impressive an image is I'm gonna have to look at multiple versions of that image in the niche, and I'm trying to see like which one is the best, which one is the worst. This is the only objective part about scoring. Again, if you wanted to score this, you could theoretically give it like 2.5 or 3, but if I'm looking at all of these together, this is for sure the best. Now, visual appeal doesn't, for me, only get into how the image looks, it also gets into how is the space in the image being utilized. And the reason I like this from a visual appeal standpoint is because the whole point of this graphic is to show me I can put my head to the front, I can put it to the side, I can even do a front and a side. But instead of using 50% of the pixel space in this image to show the product, the point isn't talking about this product, it's talking about the head positions. So I much more prefer that this image takes like 80% of the pixel space to show the purpose of this image, which is in fact the head positions, instead of just using the bottom third here to show the head positions. What I'm going to show you, and really this analysis, 2 years ago, I had a VA. I gave them like 500 different products. I said, I want you to go through and I want you to categorize all the images here by type. And so basically they looked at, he looked at tons of image galleries at scale and then was putting these images into meaningful groups by order and type. Yeah, this is basically what I'm explaining here is if you look in a niche, you're going to see the same type of image over and over again, and you're going to see some trends in the order. Like for these cat towers, most people in image position 2 and 3 are going to be talking about like assembly and usually like assembly and sizing. And you're going to see that over and over again in the niche. And so when you're doing your analysis, same way that I did is you can start to put things in groups by order and type. Now, this is more for main images. This is our main image matrix. Main image optimization is really straightforward because most people just do this. They do the product on a white background, and it's just, that's it. What you should do, though, is this main image matrix kind of shows what are the alternate versions of a main image that you can have with the product and the packaging, the product in a model. If you have inclusions, you can show the parts that are included inside. If you want to do a lifestyle image, essentially your winning main image is going to be somewhere along this main image matrix. We're going to cover some processes for testing this in next week, as well as explain the workflow. This is what I wanted to get and spend a little bit more time on. This is our secondary image matrix. And of those 500 accounts that I had that VA analyze, what we found is that 75% of all of the images that we looked at fell into one of these 16 groups. And so, like I was saying earlier, none of this is magic. It's just pattern recognition. So if you're able to kind of wrap your head around these secondary image types Then you're going to look in your niche and you're going to start to see, oh my gosh, in my niche, I see product anatomy graphics. I see applications graphics. I see testimonial safety. So I'll explain each of these briefly. Sometimes you'll find images are combinations of these. Sometimes there's examples of these that are not shown on the screen, but largely you're going to see these concepts over and over and over again. So main image is pretty straightforward. It's just the first image that you use and it's highlighting the product. These are our different types of images, 15 different groups. Main image is pretty straightforward. Product anatomy graphic is what it shows on the screen. It's like you're pointing to different areas of the product and you're saying, this is what this does. Product anatomy, pointing to different areas of the product, and it's like, this is what this does. Metrics graphic is showing a metric, some quantifiable statistic that you can talk about with the product. Applications graphic are highly used. This is talking about a power bank, and it's saying it's perfect for if you want to go running, if you want to go hiking, if you want to go traveling with it. Different use cases of using your product so that when someone who is a shopper lands on your product detail page, they're like, man, I feel like this thing was built just for me, but you're just trying to match applications to the buyer intent. A single feature or benefit graphic can literally cover anything, but the point is it's a graphic that covers one singular point, whereas a multi-feature graphic is going to cover multiple points all in one graphic. Like I said earlier, I don't like when a graphic covers multiple concepts in one image unless all of those things are related. So if I'm talking about how easy it is to assemble, if I have like 3 points on that graphic and I'm saying it comes with a user manual, all tools are included, set up in under 5 minutes, I'm talking about 3 points, but they're all related and cohesive, right? They're getting into that second point of the image. Versus if I'm talking about super easy to set up, amazingly soft fabric, your cat's going to love the scratching post. Those 3 things are not related and cohesive. I would try to break those apart into multiple images. We have a testimonial graphic, which you got to be careful with. You're not allowed to, this is more gray area, but you do see these on the platform, or at least indicating that it might be a testimonial. We've got UGC, which is user-generated content. Safety, which is either about product safety, or it can be safety in regards to, like in this case, this is compatibility. This is about charging safety with this power bank, that it's not going to blow up your phones or overcharge your devices. Compatibility is more common in tech products. We have sizing. You'll see this in almost every single niche. Inclusions, which is just showing what's included inside your pack. Competitor comparison is exactly what it sounds like. If you compare your product to a competitor's. Seasonal, which could be holiday related graphics, or it could be for a specific time of the year or function. And then a lifestyle image, which is just a scene of someone using your product, typically in action. Now, I'm going to categorize this image here. If I took out the text, I would typically call it a lifestyle image. Typically, the way that I see lifestyle images is more going to be in the realm of like a single feature graphic where you have a scene, but you're using some text to reinforce what you're seeing on the screen. This is speed scanning. I think I'm going to speed through this pretty quickly. But basically how you can get really fast pattern recognition is just go through your niche of any products that you're selling. Now you can do this a lot faster inside of Data Dive. You don't have to like manually go through and open up multiple listings at a time. You can see an entire niche all in one spot. I also recommend doing this with niches that are not your own. So if I ever want inspiration for my product in terms of creatives, if I look at my niche exclusively, I'm going to see the same thing over and over again, and I'm going to end up copying what's in my niche. Versus if I go a little bit bigger picture, let's say with the cat tower example, I've looked at my niche and everyone's doing the same thing. If I take a step back and look at like cat accessories or dog accessories or pet products, and maybe even look at pet supplements, something that's really competitive, I might even see better examples that don't feature my product, but are going to give me good ideas for, good ideas for speed scanning. So creating multiple niches. And essentially, once you have all of your images all in one spot, you're just going to go through image by image. And most of the images, nothing's going to stick out. Nothing's going to click in your brain. You're just moving through these very quick and you're saying like, no. Ooh, there's something that's interesting. right click, save as, add to a folder, categorize it by type. No, 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 no. Ooh, there's an interesting one. No, no, no. Ooh, no, ooh, right? You're not going to necessarily copy these images one for one, but this is going into a collection of images that you have that you can go and reference later when you're working with your design team, when you're working with an agency, and say, hey, I saw this version of a sizing graph for a power bank, but I really liked how it was set up, and these are the reasons why. This is the old way of doing it, speed scanning, like have a VA download listings of top 15 competitors, place images into a G drive, organize images by order in gallery, organize images by type, grade images, and look for trends. If you spend 30 minutes a month doing this, you're going to, just like going to the gym, you'll get better and better at pattern recognition, and you'll be surprised how quickly your brain is going to pick up like what makes a good image versus what makes a bad image. And so you can do this still manually yourself and have a VA place everything into a G drive. But if you have a data dive subscription, just dive like 10, 15 niches for products that are tangentially related to your niche in terms of category. And then you can do all of this in one spot, right click the images that you like, save them to your computer or save them to a Google Drive. And I think 30 minutes a month, if you really want to get good at this, like spending 30 minutes to an hour a week, you'd be surprised after one quarter how much better you're going to get. This is something that we're going to cover in next week's paid version of this masterclass. We've got, again, if you want to see what this workflow looks like, go to datadive.tools/workflows, and there's a PDF that explains how to do this. There is a sheet that has like 6 steps, and it has all of this inside of it that you can fill out on your own. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm looking at a niche and I'm saying, okay, here's image position 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I have 10 competitors in this case. And I'm just going through and categorizing the images by type. So like this listing number 1 is a main image and it's showing the inclusions of the product. This is main image plus box or packaging. This is main image, just white background. And then you can see for this niche, most of the people in image position 2 are either doing a how-to or a product anatomy graphic. You can see there's some single feature. Typically, when I'm labeling a single feature, I'll just put SF, and then I will like quick description of what it is. So like SF durability, SF sizing, and keep this quick. You're not trying to spend too much time on it. There's also a section in that worksheet. And again, we're going to go in depth on this next week, where there's like a second step for scoring. And yeah, if you do join next week, I know in last year's session, I kind of went a little bit slow of doing all of this live. There's going to be a niche that we're working on. It's for kids' binoculars. You're going to get a data dive link to that niche so that you can see the research and see deep dive. All of the images are going to be categorized correctly by type. All of the images are going to be scored with a 3-point scoring system. All of the images are going to be scored with a comprehension score. So the reason this is super helpful is we're not going to spend like 90 minutes next time doing it live. We're going to go through like, here's how you implement this on your own. And then if you want to go practice it on your own and then check against what we have, it's going to help you let you know if you're doing the right thing. So we talked about the 3-point scoring system. The next test here is the 5-second test. This all gets into the premise that when someone's shopping, they're shopping in a distracted shopping environment. They need to be able to quickly absorb what's going on inside of the listing. And if they get the point wrong or there's some miscommunication there, sellers are not going to try to figure it out. They're going to bounce and they're going to go to another listing that does a better job of explaining it. So the whole point of the 5-second test is you're going to show your image to someone who has ideally no knowledge of the product. You're going to let them look at it for 5 seconds and you're going to, whoa! I wonder how long that was. That was longer than, yeah. 5 seconds, and you're going to count it down. I was trying to like count and hit the arrow button and do a smooth transition, and it was the opposite of smooth. So you're going to count down for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you take the image away. And then you say, what's the point of that image? And then you're going to repeat for all of the images in the gallery. And if what you think the intended purpose of that graphic was is different from what that person told you, well, most likely your image is not going to be successful in Amazon's distracted shopping environment. You're going to have to try to get more succinct and more to the point. So a good example of this is up on the screen right now. all of these images are for a cooling towel. And the purpose of this first image is to show that this cooling towel works well because it's made with high-tech advanced materials. And so I actually tried this. This was with my sister, and I said, she had no knowledge of the product. I let her look at it 5 seconds, and what she said was the product is made with high-quality fabric, which, yeah, that is basically correct. Missing some of the extra points down at the bottom, but generally the point was gotten. Versus this second image that we're looking at here, my goal with this graphic is that there are many different applications of using this cooling towel. Yes, you can use it when you're hiking, but you can also use it when you are out at the gym, when you're working out, if your kids are sick, right? What my sister's response from this is you can use this product outdoors, probably because her eyes are going to this bottom graphic and it says, use it anywhere, easy to carry. And she's like, yeah, you bring this thing outdoors. But we would have missed all of these areas in the top. So if I wanted to rework this image and improve my comprehension score, all I would do is I would just say, okay, let's try to do another version of this. And instead of using 60% of the pixel space to show using this on hiking, I'm going to slim down the text above. Maybe instead of having 5 different applications, maybe get that down to 4 nice quadrants. And it's going to be multiple uses. Great if your kids are sick. Great for at the gym. Great for outdoor hikes. Great for hot summer days with friends. And it's showing people sitting around. Then I would go back, retest the image and say, okay, this is what my point is. There's multiple applications for using this towel, and see if the response rate goes up. So what you should be thinking about doing is auditing your images using the 5-second test. This is something that we do at our live event, our conference Camp Ecom, and you're basically just seeing if the intended purpose matches with what you have. And so there's really cool. We're going to cover this next week. We're going to get into Product Pinion actually, and I think IntelliV as well has tests that you can pay for, and it'll show your image to someone else for, I think IntelliV does half a second in 3 seconds, and I'm pretty sure Product Pinion has a 3-second test. And so you can pay money and get this done, or you can go and get this done on your own. What you're going to want to do is get 5 to 10 members of your ideally non-creative team, get people on your PPC team, or get your accountant or your operations director, ideally people who have no knowledge of the product. Friends and family also work for this. So at your next family gathering, maybe tonight, if the election gets too tense, then you're like, hey guys, let's take a break for a minute. And you get the people in your living room at your watch party, you get them together, you explain the premise of the test, and you say, okay, I'm going to show you a series of images. You're going to get to look at them for 5 seconds, and then it's going to go to a black slide. And I want you to write down what you think the purpose of that image is. And you can do this written or with Google Forms. You're going to show each of the images for 5 seconds each. You're going to allow the participants to respond and then analyze the responses accordingly. If we're looking at this image here, this is a power bank. What's the purpose of this image? This is actually a good way to do a test. So we're going to do this in real time, and then we'll take a little bit of a break. But this is maybe a little bit of how it works. So what I want everyone to do is get ready. I want as much participation as possible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a series of images. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to look at it. And we're going to see if these images pass our comprehension test. So you got to be quick. So be ready on your keyboard because I'm only going to show it to you for 5 seconds. Wait, I got to click here. Okay, so write in the chat, what do you think the purpose of that image is? And don't be nervous about putting the right answer, because some of these are honestly better than others. Okay, so we got to charge phone, showing how many ports, showing the power bank, USB 3.0. Okay, this one I actually don't know. I think it might be the main image for the product. It is showing the ports here, maybe showing the battery pack. I'd say this one is probably going to pass the comprehension test, but there's a lot of different results here. I was talking about ports. And so how could we improve the comprehension speed on this image? Well, we could tell the audience exactly why we're showing them this image. It's like, oh, it's got USB 3.0 and it's got a little arrow to here, and it's got an input and output. It's showing you a power indicator, and switch this into a product anatomy graphic. So I think this one would pass a comprehension test, but the question we should be asking ourselves is, could we make this more cohesive, easier for the brain to digest in a smaller amount of time? Like, for sure, we could probably have this pass like a half-second comprehension test. So let's go on to the next image. We're going to do this again. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing, 5 seconds. I actually don't know what these images are, so we'll see. Okay, we're going to go back. Answer in. If that felt quick, that's 5 seconds. Imagine that Product Pinion is going to do that in 3 seconds, and IntelliV has a half-second test. You can start to see how valuable this stuff is. If someone's got their phone out, they're looking at your Amazon listing, and it's like, shoot, swipe, swipe, swipe. You probably don't even have 5 seconds. I probably need to update this. So it's talking about power for days, long-lasting duration, battery life, compatibility. This is one of the top sellers on Amazon's platform, Anchor, and they have a fantastic creative strategy. What's so great about this is what we would call a metrics graphic. There's something quantifiable that's going on in these images, and even though we only looked at this for 5 seconds, it's telling you that, like, it doesn't matter if you have an iPhone, Samsung, iPad mini, you're going to be able to charge each of these devices at least one time, for some things 2 times, with a 10,000 mAh battery. So it's giving you a lot of information, but like right away, you can gravitate to what device is mine. You're getting an idea that, okay, I have an idea of how I'm going to use this in my head. I'm going to be out. My phone might get low. You're not expecting this to charge your phone 5 times, but this is going to check off in my head. This has enough capacity for my needs. So this one looks like everyone got correct. So we're going to do this one again. Okay. And I think we only have like 2 more of these. I should have done this with some images that were worse, but imagine that Anchor is kind of the cream of the crop, and you want, like, if you go and do this with your images later with your friends and family, don't kick yourself if your images are not this good, because again, this is like a very competitive category and a very strong seller. So yeah, this is like superior durability. It's so simple, right? The power bank is dropping onto the sand, onto this dirt, and it's telling you that it's super strong. So this one performed very well. Didn't give any warning there. That one is a little bit more complicated, and I might be going a little bit fast on my seconds. But let's see, did anyone get that? I didn't give a heads up. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to give everyone 1 more second, 2 more seconds on this, because now I didn't give a heads up. We'll do 3 seconds. Ready? Okay. Okay, so we'll just go and show this one. This one's a little bit more of a complicated graphic. And if I was Anchor, maybe even as good as this is, could they improve even a little better? What this is saying is keep your battery healthy, and it's talking about something that they call multi-protect. And so what it's basically saying is that the battery is not going to be overloaded or overcharged. This is a little bit confusing to me, because it's saying, like, with multi-protect, you're always going to be charged. It's not going to overcharge or overload, but without, you're going to be a lower battery percentage. So even with this one, we know that we're talking about charging the battery. We know we're talking about some proprietary technology. This is kind of like a competitor comparison graphic where it's saying this is what our product has. This is what the competitors don't have. This one I think could actually be improved in terms of clarity. Okay, there's probably a better way to show, like, I don't know, maybe it should be showing like a damaged phone on the other side, just something to keep in mind. Okay, I don't think we're going to go through any more of these. These are all pretty good. This is, talking about product safety, example, the safety graphic. And it's basically, this is like a product anatomy, a little bit technical, telling you that this battery pack is super safe. This is a compatibility graphic, can also fall into the category of safety, showing that you can charge all of these different devices. Next section here is on best practices. These are not like rules to live by. It's more of, these are generally good ideas. You're going to obviously have to consider what is going to be the best for your niche and, do what works for you. But generally, I think these are generally pretty good advice. So when optimizing main images, consider possible avenues for variance. If you join the advanced class that we do next week, we're going to use a tool inside of Product Opinion called Variationizer to create alternates of main images. Really fantastic. Your winning image is going to be somewhere along this main image matrix. You generally aren't going to know what's going to work until you test and try. We get a lot of questions from people asking, well, like, as in Amazon, doesn't their TOS say it just has to be your product on a white background? Like, look around Amazon's platform. It's just not the case. It's just not true. When in that survey that we did where we looked at 500 products, there was like 65% of the images had what people would call like gray or black hat techniques. And so the actual terms of service for Amazon say that a main image must be professionally photographed, an actual image of the product, no graphics or illustrations, mock-ups, and they must not show excluded accessories or props that might confuse the customer. So the reality is Amazon allows millions of different products. They're trying to come up with the terms of service that is going to fit for everything. And they only have one terms of service to cover all of this. And so I think Amazon is intentionally giving us vague guidelines, and it's up to us to focus on customer centricity. You're going to have to think like, am I making a main image that's intentionally distracting or it's going to confuse the customer? Or is this going to actually help someone make a better decision about the product that they are buying? And so at max, if you do something that's a little bit naughty, the main image is going to get suppressed. If you have a backup ready to go, I recommend that you keep pushing the envelope. If you want to be very risk adverse to this and do something that's very safe, then what you can do is come up with an idea for a risky main image. You can run this through Manage Your Experiments. That's the A/B testing tool inside of Amazon. And when you're writing your hypothesis, instead of saying, hey, I'm adding a little bit of eye candy, let's say I'm selling like this Coca-Cola and I want to put like a splash or I want to put like vanilla or some flavoring around it. Instead of saying, hey, I'm putting this in because I want to get higher click-through rate and dominate my competition, you're saying, I want to put vanilla flower on this product because it's going to tell people that this is not just the normal Coke, this is the Coke with vanilla flavor. And that's going to help someone make a better buying decision. And it's going to have them have a better shopping experience. The people who approve Manage Your Experiments are real live human beings. And so if you cater your hypothesis to be in line with Amazon's training around customer centricity, you can get a human to give you a thumbs up and get their blessing. And so I've seen this work with non-white backgrounds for like glow-in-the-dark items. I've seen this work with having lifestyle images as the main image for home decor items. And yes, this stuff actually does work. If you want to be really safe, use Manage Your Experiments. You might not get approved on your first go, but you can just keep resubmitting. I've also seen where it hasn't been approved on the first try, but is approved on like second or third. Adding main image eye candy where permitted is still extremely effective. So that's what I was just talking about here. If you want to really get into this, someone in the industry, Danielle Bolzman from Mindful Goods, I think it's like the pioneer of this. Her agency does amazing work with eye candy. I think she's probably the one who coined the term. So that's like adding the flavor, adding, this protein doesn't actually say 25 grams. It doesn't actually have this 22 grams of protein or the flavor here. You're just adding items that the customer might want to see. In next week's workshop, in Masterclass rather, we're going to get really in depth onto this. We're also going to have some information from Peter Pollitt and Tel Aviv, where he's basically telling us not to just throw something in there arbitrarily, to run a drab test, which is dominant reasons to avoid buying, see what the market research says about the biggest objections people have about the product, and use data to incorporate what should go into your main image rather than just trying to guess or copy what your niche is already doing. You can consider alternate non-white backgrounds when optimizing the main image. So for this dog bed, instead of just white background, showing it in a realistic environment. Yes, you can get these approved through manager experiments. I've seen this done before. We all know that most traffic is going to come through mobile images, mobile search rather, like maybe 60, 70%, depending on your product category, it's going to be purchased on mobile. So instead of just having a square main image, if you orient it to be vertical, your image is actually going to display larger in search results. So you can see here this blender that is a very high vertical scale on the main image. It's much larger than this blender here, almost twice the size, much larger than these blenders here. And that's because it's basically using all of the pixel space. And there's some credit to Tomer from TalkDog community. I have permission to share these slides. Really good information. Done a lot of different case studies with this. We have some on the YouTube channel with Data Dive, actually with Daniela from Mindful Goods, about the impact of main and secondary images. I've seen as high as a 12% increase from implementing eye candy on a patio, lawn, and garden. Remember that if you're testing main images, a lot of people say, well, I tested something in manager experiments and it lost. And I think Amazon's wrong. And I think that the data is not reliable because there's too much stuff that's going on and you coming up with all these excuses. You can absolutely improve your main image from testing over time. You're just not always going to get it right on the first try. And we have to kind of get away in our head of saying it needs to be a slam dunk from the beginning. It's okay if you go down for a little bit, as long as over time you're ultimately getting to the correct and most optimal creative assets that you can be using. Main image is pretty simple. I think of anything that you can do in Amazon, it's likely the fastest and most cost-effective way to see an improvement in your business. If you don't have the time to go and execute on this, hire an agency, someone who can do it for you. And I think you're going to probably see some improvements. For secondary images, we talked about the 5-second rule. Work on making your images not just mobile friendly, but ultra mobile friendly. So images like these aren't just going to pass the 5-second test. They're going to pass like the 0.5 second test. So you can look at it right away and quickly get the point. It's big, it's bold, not necessarily by design. I'm not saying it needs to look like this. I'm just saying that the brain should be able to digest what's going on extremely fast. If you're doing a product anatomy, instead of trying to show 5 different points of your product all at once, just try zooming in and showing one area with a hyper zoom. So this is talking about this neck pillow, and it's talking just about the foam instead of talking about the zipper and the padding on the top and the padding on the back. It's literally just talking about how soft the foam is. Same thing with this dog bed. It's zooming in and it's showing you a hyper zoom of what the fabric looks like. This, I think, is relevant for the cat tree, cat tower. Instead of trying to show everything that's happening there, I'm going to have one graphic that just talks about the scratching post, one graphic that just talks about the cat hammock, one graphic that just talks about the platform on the top, which is a great perch. If you're doing a product anatomy graphic, you can put multiple points in your product anatomy graphic, but you have to start to ask yourself, what's the point in showing all of it? So this is a good example of having 3 points maximum unless where necessary. So let's say I have a hammock and I can also talk about the base and I can also talk about, the strings here. I'm going to pick what are the most 3 important things that people really care about, that maybe people are worried about comfort or they're worried about it breaking. And if I have to split this into 2 graphics, then I can. Whenever possible, avoid solely relying on standalone lifestyle images. So if we've got this hammock graphic here, this is great. It shows someone relaxing, but if you put a little bit of text on here, it's going to help that speed of comprehension go up, right? So this is a better example of it. It's adding some text to help drive the point home. And yeah. So we talked about leveraging text to increase the comprehension speed. All 3 of these graphics are trying to do the exact same thing. But this one, without any text, it might be a little bit confusing as to what exactly this is used for, versus this one over on the right-hand side. It's like showing me and explaining what each of these steps are. If I've never used a garlic press before, it might be a little bit confusing. Metrics graphics should only be quantified in a tangible way, or metrics graphics should be quantified in a tangible way. So instead of just showing sizing for these spatulas, it's showing this large is for, doing this kind of thing. The fish flipper is using, for fish. The small is for more delicate items like this egg. So it just helps it click a little bit faster. Same thing here with this dog bed. It's showing like, here's the different sizes of the dog bed, but here's the compatibility with based on the weight and size of your pup. Here's the product that is going to best fit your needs. More examples of quantifiable metrics. We talked about this with the power bank. These kind of graphics are extremely powerful. This is why you want to be putting together the breakdown of the images in your gallery, not just in your niche, but you can get some really good inspiration here. So not every product is going to have graphics that are related to metrics, but if they do, giving some baseline for why these are important is helpful. Limit yourself to one singular concept per image. We talked about this in the 3-point scoring system. This image on the left-hand side is telling me about like the heat that the light bulb is going to burn at. It's showing me sizing. It's showing me voltage, wattage, bulb type, all of this information here. It's telling me how big this thing is versus this. It's like one singular focus. This is shockproof. It's a plastic bulb. If you use this outside, it's not going to break. So the more simple you can get your graphics, the better. If you're going to do a competitor comparison, I think these charts are quite outdated. I think people gloss over them and they don't really believe them. Of course, like magic, your product is going to have all of the checks and the other brands are awful and they're terrible. If you're going to have a metrics graphic, I recommend only using one of these if you have a tangible benefit. So if I'm selling this kid's pool, it might actually be a tangible benefit to say, mine is more than 10 inches larger than the other competitors, or our battery pack has some specific technology that no one else has, versus if you're trying to do one of these graphics where ours is perfect and the other products are going to give you cancer. I think people just don't buy that anymore. It used to be a lot more popular. Seasonal gifting graphics should be as specific as possible. This is something we're working on with the Share It Studio case study, getting some specific images just for Christmas, just for the holidays, and seeing if that, and we're doing like new secondary images and A+ content to see if that makes any difference, as it's a highly giftable item. Top-down lay flat shots are minimalist and cost-effective, so just a different style. This is just also very easy to do inside of Photoshop without having to do a full-blown photography shoot. It's like literally just the product, relevant scene. You can Photoshop a hand in there to make it look real. Big question we get is about branding. I would avoid, unless you're koozie, maybe don't put the brand name in every single slide, unless your brand name is something that's getting a significant amount of branded search. I think the middle ground on this is still having a gallery that looks cohesive, and maybe the brand is already on your product. If it's a supplement or like consumer packaged good, that's a little different. People want to see a brand name. They don't want to ingest things in their body that the brand doesn't look legit. But if I'm selling like a cat tree, cat tower, I probably don't need to say Anthony's Cat Tower and slap my logo in every single image. What's going to be better is if I have the logo once and I have a consistent branding theme, and then it looks like all of these images are related. They're all part of the same slideshow, versus this is using some pixel space and it's, again, distracting from the point that this is about sizing. This is about how long it's going to stay cold, right? This is about the insulation. It's just a little bit much, in my opinion. So this is from another case study. This one's actually a little bit older, but auditing lifestyle images with the 5-second test was able to increase conversion by 19%. This was on a home and garden product and really making secondary image updates. We talked about the 3-point test. I'm going to skip this for right now. This is an old case study. We'll get into more of the consumer testing market research next week. But basically, like this is a product inclusions graphic. We did a bunch of alternates on this, and we have a newer version of this that I'm going to share in the end. What am I getting to here? What's the point? This is from another case study where I spent a lot of time and a lot of money, more like graphic design time, and like we paid those designers, that the listing was actually already really good. it was one of the highest unit session percentages I've ever seen for a product line. It was like 85% conversion rate. And the seller's like, oh, we're getting more competition. We want to get back our market share. Or they already had really good market share, but they just wanted to dominate. They wanted to push like everyone out. And they wanted us to do another look at the images. And we tried it. And at that point, the flow of information was already really good. And the improvements that we were making were really purely visual. And this was a health and household product. And what we found is that we weren't able to increase unit session percentage at all. It was almost the exact same thing. Guess what I'm getting at? It's like just making something look better isn't necessarily going to work. But if you focus on improving the flow of information, and that's what we tried in a different case study, the results were much better. We're able to see a 27% increase on a kitchen and dining product. And it wasn't focusing on how do we make this look better. It was, you're trying to increase the speed of comprehension. And it's pretty well encapsulated here. So let's say you have a nutrition information for a supplement product, and on the left-hand side is your first image. And then a few months later or a year later, let's say you go to this image in the middle, which is your V2, and then you go all the way on the right, that's like your V3. Going from the image number 1 to 2, that could potentially give you a high potential for increase. But if you go from like image 2 to image 3 and you test and you say, okay, well, the image on the right-hand side looks a little bit better, it's not really changing how the information flows. It's not like lowering your guard. It's really just a different visual, different design. And so the reason this case study that I'm keep mentioning did so well is because their main image was just the product on a white background. They had 3 lifestyle images with no text, no A+ content. So the potential for increase from their really lackluster gallery to what we put together, is a huge increase. But like as we continue to improve that, we're expecting we're going to be able to increase conversion rate a little bit by testing image order, alternating the A+ content, testing alternates of the secondary images. But it's not like it's going to most likely give us another 5% increase. We might get like another percent, another 0.5%, and that's still meaningful. It's still valuable, but we're not expecting to like just with more image optimizations go from 800 grand a month to 1.6 million a month and get like 80% of that market share. Probably not going to happen. Okay. This is just some secondary image templates. I'll go through these pretty quick. Everyone will get the slides in the end. You can start doing these yourself when you get examples of images that you like. And I recommend this to people, like get out a sheet of paper. There's actually a friend of mine, Roxanne, I have to respond to because she just sent me some of her images and I told her I'd give her some feedback. But before she put her images together, if Roxanne is watching, like Roxy, yeah, if she's watching, I did look at your images and they are doing really good. But what I had her do first is like draw these things out on a sheet of paper. We were at the Alibaba Co-Create event. She actually brought the sheet of paper and had like sketched things out. So you don't have to be a designer to do this. You can see here, we're taking the sizing graphic and we're like, okay, this is what it's going to look like. Front image of the product, back image of the product, dimensions, anatomy, in use. This is our benefits title. And you can see that all of this is going on here. So if you want to train your brain into being able to concept better images, just see an image that you really like and like draw it out on a piece of paper. Like, okay, this is my title, right? Goes on from there. Okay, we got another one here. This is an inclusions graphic, what's included. And so again, we can do the exact same thing. Top left is what's included. Then I've got like inclusion 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. On the right-hand side, I've got the product image. That's pretty much it, right? Super straightforward. So now if I want to go to my design team, I can say, well, what if we would move our product image to the left? Or what if we would put like a semicircle around our inclusions? Your images that you draw out don't need to be this good, right? You can be like, here's my P for product, I, and then like SI is special inclusions, SI is special inclusions. And this is really what I'll send to creative teams sometimes. So I'm like, okay, P stands for product. These are like the small inclusions, SI are the special inclusions. And I just want you to look like that. And I would have to draw like a top right-hand side, I'd say, okay, that's where my title goes. And then I'd write out in text what the title should be. Any designer, I've been doing this for years, building on my slide decks, all this stuff, my notes always look like this. And any designer who's halfway decent is going to be able to turn your crappy drawings into images. Here's another one. This is a benefits, showing me like capacity of this, and benefit 1, benefit 2. Top left is going to say capacity. Here's our product. This is a hyper zoom. It's talking about the strength of the suction. So we've got like the big product here. We've got a zoomed in of the head, and we're saying like super suction, better for sucking it up. Easy moving. This is talking about like you can move this around on the floor. We're showing a lifestyle image, product and use, benefit, title. So this is just on, some image concepting. This is a breakdown of the video. You can do the same thing for A+ content. You can do the same thing for video. You're literally just write out what is going on here. What is the breakdown of what I'm looking at? And just get into the habit of like writing this stuff down. And the more that you do this, you're going to train your brain, and you're going to not look at something and say, wow, this is a great video. Wow, this is a great image gallery. How do I do this? You're going to say, oh, this video, the reason that my brain likes this, the reason that this looks good is because of X, Y, and Z things. And I can literally write that down and make my own version. Okay, packaging templates. Name of the game on packaging here. This came from a guide from GS1. A lot of people will know of this from, people get their GS1 barcodes. And they put together this guide it's largely on main image ideas. It's not all about product packaging, but basically it's giving you some breakdowns for how you should do your packaging. This is getting more into play now as Amazon is using AI to inspect what your image is and then categorize and tag these images, really having a lot to do with the keywords in your listing. So again, this is something we're going to cover next week. There's tools inside of Product Pinion. A guy, Jeffrey, one of our students in Inner Circle, put together an AI chatbot that you can upload images into GPT, and it'll tell you like what Amazon, from like a Cosmo perspective, thinks is in your listing. So we'll cover that next week. But long story short is like keyword as big as possible in your packaging, and then information that the customer wants to know. So when this packaging ships, there's a lot more information on this pasta sauce than what's being shown here. We're making this super big, super mobile friendly. We're making the weight super big, super mobile friendly. So this is what it looks like in real life. This is what it looks like for your main image. And so not saying the product needs to ship exactly like this, but keeping in mind that from a main image standpoint, people should be able to read. It should be very quick, to the point. Another example here, pretty straightforward, like vegetable stock cubes. This works really well in CPG. This is what the package actually ships like. This is what it looks like. This is what it's optimized looking like for mobile. You can, inside of the deck, when it's sent out, you'll be able to see this. It's the GS1 guidelines for hero image. There's a lot of good information on there in packaging as well. And then now we're going to cover a little bit of A+ content and creating simple keyword optimized listings. Name of the game now with A+ content is premium A+. The goal is to either have it look really, you're going to see an example where we call it blended, or to make it very interactive. Like I said earlier, someone wants to get in, get out, get on with their life when it comes to shopping. But every single action that I can get them to take in your listing is going to improve the probability that they're going to end up converting and buying the product. So this applies to A+ content. If instead of just having one static image, if they can scroll through different galleries and click on things, or the scrollable galleries, I think, are the most common, most easy to implement. The probability that they're going to purchase the product is going to be higher. If I can make the A+ content look like it's all one cohesive image, it's going to perform better. It's going to lower people's guards. It's going to make them think, wow, this looks really cool. They're going to feel like this brand is more reputable, higher probability that they're going to add to the cart. The old version of A+ content, which is text heavy, highly dense in information, like image, text, you shouldn't be doing that anymore. This is from our Inner Circle Facebook group. This is actually less than a month ago. One of our members was saying, hey, can someone remind me what's the hack to get premium A+ faster? And you can see one of the members in our group responded. I think most people already know about this, but you have to be brand registered, but anyone can get premium A+ content. You just have to submit or edit a basic A+ content a minimum of 5 times, even if you're changing a very minor detail. And then every Friday is their cycle for approval. And usually it's going to go up without an issue. Now, I would recommend in another world where you would actually just test 5 alternate versions of your A+ content. But if you want to get it quick, I think you can just submit over and over again. These are some examples. I have 2 examples of really good A+ content. For this, I would recommend look inside of your niche, but I did this on a call yesterday with a data dive user. I went outside of the niche and found much better examples. Also, too, I saw there were some people from around the world here on this webinar. If you're selling in, let's say, EU marketplace or UK marketplace, or potentially a marketplace that's not as big as the US, going and diving that same product in another marketplace that's more competitive than yours can be a great way to get inspiration. For this, I pulled up Bose headphones, and this is an exact example of really interactive premium A+ content. So instead of just having images, you can see here, this from the brand section is a scrollable gallery. So you can actually click on these arrows and get an entirely new set of photos. This down here is like an interactive anatomy. So instead of using all of this pixel space to show everything about the product, I can just hover over this and see this is telling me about the cushions. This is telling me about a smart power on and off button. This is talking to me about the speakers. It's got video inside of it. Looks really clean, looks really good. The more clicks, the more interactions that I can get someone to take on my listing, the more invested they are going to be in the product, the higher probability that I can get them to convert. One more thing that I want to say about interactive premium A+ content doesn't have anything to do with A+ content, but it's with 360 images that you put in your image gallery. I don't have a slide in this presentation about this. We'll get into more detail with that next week. But for most product categories, you can upload 360 renders of your product. As long as the product isn't too detailed, it's going to generally look okay. And you might be thinking, like, I'm selling this can of Coke. Why would anyone care if I can see a 360 spin of the product? And when you upload it into Amazon, you're going to have to put it in a GLB file. And it's not even going to look that good. It's not going to look anywhere near as photorealistic as your images. And you might only think that products that are for home decor, they want to maybe get a better idea of how it's going to fit, how it's going to look. Again, none of that matters. If you just get someone to click on that 360 image because it's different, and they go and rotate that product once, I know it sounds silly, but if people go and actually spin this thing around, they're more invested in the product and they're more likely to buy. Every additional action you can get someone to take on your listing before they bounce and go to a competitor is going to improve the probability that they're going to add to cart and that they're going to convert. So this is interactive premium A+ content. This is something that's really nice. We call this blended A+ content. Actually, this example specifically came from a PPC and conversion optimization workshop we taught in New York last week. And one of the members in the group suggested to take a look at this listing. This is beautiful, not just because it's very minimal in terms of information and the design is good, but it actually looks like this is all one singular image that flows together. And if you show this as an example to your design team, most designers can replicate this very easily. And so you're going to see here, it's like the leaves are kind of expanding in here. The water splash is expanding into that area. And it's like it's all flowing together. So typically you would do something very similar to this regardless of having like multiple modules here that all have different purposes, but it just looks like it's all blended together. Really good inspiration. And then here's some more just like simple templates. And you can see it's broken down on the right-hand side. In the optimization masterclass next week, we'll get into some of the workflow that covers categorization of your A+ content templates. So the same way that we categorize our main images by type, we're going to look and we're going to say, like, what's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of this? And again, with with A+ content, we just want to make it super minimal, easy to digest. And I'm not going to spend time explaining this. You can go back in the decks later and see it's all broken down here on the right. Easy to replicate. Really clean. Big, bold, not a lot going on. This is probably a little too much information. This is probably a little too much information. These are all the old style. This is not premium A+. Actually, this one might. These are premium A+ because they have the, you can rotate through. But like this questions and answer FAQ, this is much better served in a premium A+ template where this is a carousel. It's like most common questions. And you're not trying to put 3 questions all in one module. This is the advantage of premium A+. Let the person decide for themselves if they want to read all of that text. Keep it simple, keep it short, keep it moving. Okay, this is where we're getting to the end, and we're going to do announcements after this. And if you like this, you're really going to like next week. And I think we talk a little bit about that, and I give a little teaser. This is more of like entry level. This masterclass is free for everyone. Some of it's reviews, some of it's new. If you want to get access, the masterclass next week is paid. It's not free. So anyone who's in Inner Circle gets free access. I hope everyone in Inner Circle is going to join, because it's going to be all brand new, all fresh, a lot of case studies, specific examples. Anyone who wants can join. I think it's maybe like $200 to join, but if you want to get all of our masterclasses totally for free, you can join Inner Circle. You get free access to all of our masterminds. We have 300 plus 7-8-figure sellers. These are people who are doing more than $1 million a year on Amazon. Brandon Young, who is a massive seller and the creator of Inner Circle, hosts weekly Ask Me Anything calls. It's a full college level course. We're working on redoing all of the content. There's a custom mastermind. You get global event access. We just did one this past week in New York. We're doing one 2 weeks from now in Singapore. And you get discounts on Data Dive, Camp Ecom, and more. So if you want to learn more about joining, I think you can go to just sellersystems.com and you can actually book a call with an Inner Circle member, and they'll answer all your questions. Next week, this is November 14th, 5 p.m. Eastern, is going to be the advanced version of this. So this is like high level, just helping to get your brain wrapped around everything. Next week is where we're going to get very practical. There's going to be some homework that is sent out in advance. So this is your motivation to register early, so you can you'll get way more out of that session if you do the pre-work. It's going to get way more into the actual strategies. I'm going to show you an example of a product that we've been working on in just a minute. This is advanced optimization. So we get much more into market research, much more into tools, much more into strategies, things that you're going to be able to go and implement right away into your brand or with an agency. The regular price is $197. If you're an Inner Circle, it's totally free. Again, I would register in advance for this. Even if you can't make it, we will send out a recording. And register in advance, because then you'll also get the pre-work. I think I said that already, but the pre-work is big. One of the things that we're going to be covering is we picked a random product. I did this like 2 years ago at PickFu with the dog hair trimmer. That was the example that I skipped earlier. We picked a kid's binoculars. And what you're seeing on the screen here is like 3 hours in design that I went through, and I did the workflow that I'm going to teach next week. I did the first 3 steps. I categorized the images, scored the images, and then made concepts that I handed off to the creative team. And I went to our design team and I said, hey, I want you to put together whatever you can inside of 3 hours. And they're like, it's not possible. We can't do it. And I was like, I don't care if it's good. Just give me something. Let's see how we do. And so they put together some concepts inside of 3 hours, some A+ content. I said, just make sure everything gets finished. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just get something down on paper. And we went through and tested this stuff inside of Product Pinion. And what was surprising to me is we actually won out of the competitors in the niche. We had the best image for only one. And then we got 3 second places out of 5 sellers who had the same type of image. So it would be pretty insane if in 3 hours we were able to beat one of the most competitive niches I've ever seen. There's like, out of the 30 people, 19 of the sellers are very strong in data dive. Really, really, not bad images by any stretch of the imagination. So the point is, you can see right now what they've done in 3 hours. By next week, they're going to spend somewhere around like 20, 25 hours on this. So it's going to be a really comprehensive case study front to back on how you categorize all of the images by type, how you score the images, how you create the concepts, hand those off to a creative team. And then if this is the V 1.0 or maybe like 0.75, we're going to show you like what the V2, the V3, the V4. And I think by the end of this, and by next week's masterclass, we're going to win hands down in every category and have images that just look next level good. And so this is what some of the results look like inside of Product Pinion. It's only going to keep getting better from here. You can see like this is the sizing graphic that we came in first place with, our inclusions graphic, which came in second place, our durability graphic, which came in tied second and third. And we also have another masterclass coming up with Brandon Young. This one is going to be product discovery and AI design. I don't know if we have a date for that yet. And if you have questions about joining Inner Circle, you can scan the QR code and talk with a member of the team. Also, I think I should mention this. I've been seeing some friends post about this. I don't know what we're nominated for here. I'm guessing it's course. Maybe Marlene can let me know in the chat. But Golden Seller Awards, this is from Ecom Cooperative and Smart Scout. We use Smart Scout. I love Smart Scout. Very helpful. Ecom Cooperative, a great group. I don't know too much about this, but so we've been nominated for Best Course and Best Private Label Course and Best Facebook Community. So go give us a vote. Unless you think we suck, then, don't give us a vote. But I think everyone should go and vote. Just like the presidential elections here in the US, your vote matters. And I think Ecom Cooperative and Smart Scout will like the engagement. So go and vote for someone. Hopefully it's going to be us. We're probably not supposed to influence the votes. And I'm going to spend some time going through the questions here and see if there's anything else. I'm going to go in reverse order here. So I see Zeus is saying, I love the dog hair trimmer set. Was a tremendous case study. I loved it too, and I wanted to bring it back. The cool thing is the person who is helping us right now, Natasha, used to work with us at PickFu. And so when I left PickFu, I asked for Justin and John's blessing first. It's not like I poached anyone's employees, but she was able to come over and work with us at Data Dive. She is our creative director and the creative director for Brandon's brands. And so this is going to be much more work. We've been working also with our designer, Matthias. So if anyone remembers the pet hair trimmer example from back in the day, definitely join next week because the advanced version of that, the updated version of that is going to be like mind-blowingly good. Andy is saying, we'll see us at Southern Seller Fest in 10 days in Singapore. I am getting on a flight. I'm going to stop in Vietnam and visit my buddy who him and his wife just had a baby in Ho Chi Minh City. And then I'm going to hop to Manila for a few days. And then I will be in Singapore. So Andy, I'd love to meet up with you. Can't wait to see you, man. Always great to see you in person. And I'm sure we'll have some great conversations. Zeus is giving us some super valuable gold shared as usual. I super appreciate that, man. Good to hear from you. Is the template already shared in the chat? I think you're going to get this whole slide deck when the recording goes out, usually 48 hours after the call. Daniela is saying you don't need to edit anything, just resubmit 5+ times. If this is the Daniela, I think it is. She knows what she's talking about. If it's Daniela from Mindful Goods, they put together some insane case studies. We featured one of them recently on Office Hours. We're going to have her back. She makes some of the most beautiful A+ content that I've seen. And so if she's saying that you can resubmit it with no changes, then I think I would trust her. We got some answers to our comprehension test here. If there's any more questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. I'm happy to stick around as long as anyone wants. We'll have full access. Yeah, people are asking if they can get the replay. I understand we can view our conversion for our category using brand analytics, but do we dial it down further if our niche is more specific with the main category? We didn't cover so much of brand analytics today. We will cover that next week. So we'll get into that. I hope you're able to join again next week, Glenn. It'll be much more of a technical analysis, and not just on conversion rate, but like certain things about what happens when your listing has a high conversion rate but a low click-through rate. How can you use that to diagnose issues with your main image? I don't think looking into brand analytics is something that we've ever covered in depth before inside of Inner Circle. At least I haven't. So I'm excited to dig into the technical analysis, not just the visuals, but the numbers as well. Sam is asking how we find the conversion rate. We're going to show that in next week's session. Michelle is asking, what's the difference between competitive search volume strength and competitive keyword strength? Which one's better when evaluating the niche? So this is a data dive specific question. So the question here is like, what's the difference between these two metrics, keywords on page 1 and SV on page 1? Yeah, so it's just two different ways of looking at the same number. I like search volume on page 1 a little bit better because it's saying out of all of the searches that this niche gets a month, this seller, in this case, you're getting 166,000 searches a month. This seller's indexed on page 1 for 156,000, which is 94% of 166K, versus this is the number of keywords. So out of the 49 keywords in this master keyword list, this seller's ranked on page 1 for 43 of them. So both of these are helpful metrics, but when I'm sorting my MKL, I like to use SV on P1. This is what we show inside of the guides, just because I think this is I just think it's a little bit better of a cleaner of a number to look at versus looking at the absolute number here. But you can take your preference. Sometimes you might find that this is also more like this is looking an absolute number as, and I don't know what I switched here. Oh, it just switched the order of these. The reason that for me SV on page 1 is more important is, let's say I'm indexed out of the 49 keywords in this master keyword list. Let's say I'm indexed for 48, but I'm not indexed at all for binoculars for kids with 48,000 searches a month. That's going to be a really, really bad thing. Versus if I say, well, I'm indexed for 48 out of 49, it might show a high percentage, but the SV on page 1 would be lower. What I care more about are the large search volume keywords versus if there's some things at the bottom that have like 452 searches a month for pink binoculars, I'm not going to mind as much if I'm not indexed for the 452 searches a month. So I prefer SV on P1. Chinese listings are improving very fast too. To compete, we need to keep up with this technology or fall behind. Yeah, that is a real point. I think I'm not going to do it, but I've actually thought about, what if I just like went over to China and like worked over there for a few months and tried to make some money. I'm not going to do it. I have some ethical boundaries on that, but I think they're going to get there regardless. Like they're getting better and better at branding, and it's something we should all be worried about. So build your brands while you can, build your moat while you can, because in 2 years, I think Temu, Shein are going to get like much bigger, and they're going to get better at branding and more competitive on Amazon. They covered this in depth in the AMZ Innovate here in New York, basically saying like China, and I put something on like this on my Instagram stories, China corporate, China.com, whatever you want to call it, is just going to get bigger and better. And if you think about like DJI, Huawei, BYD, the cars, if anyone here has been in a BYD car in the US, you like look at a Tesla or look at any of the EVs we have here, and you're like, man, our stuff is nowhere near as good. And they're getting really good at making really good products. So keep an eye out for that. You have an advantage if you're the person manufacturing the product. You can sell at a low price, and then all of a sudden you can do amazing branding and it doesn't look ridiculous. Do we have a test with the original cat in sizing pick? This was just done kind of quickly. So no, we didn't really develop the cat example, but next week you will be able to see kids' binoculars. Zubir is asking, can you tell us now doing practical or just slides? Next week is going to be heavily practical. Register in advance. You'll get some homework. I recommend that you try to at least play with the homework. If you don't finish it, like no one's going to get a lecture if you don't finish the homework, but if you at least try and attempt the homework, it's going to help you retain a lot more. Okay, so I have a couple more things to say, and I appreciate everyone who's stuck around. It doesn't look like we might have a couple more questions here. If you haven't joined Inner Circle, you can get a $500 discount, leveraging 24, $500 off. So feel free to use that, screenshot that. If you forget what it is, reach out, and the team will know what the code is. If you want to talk to someone, you'll talk to people who are actual members. That's pretty much it. Q&A. Thank you to our sponsors. We have 2 sponsors that we have to give shout outs to, and not just because they pay us money, but they're both awesome companies. 3. Oh, okay. We got to add one on. Getida is awesome. If you're not doing refunds, Amazon is, they mess things up. I used to work in a fulfillment center, and apparently like 1 to 3% of all of the volume that you send through Amazon, they mess up something and they owe you money. And unfortunately, the refund window is going down. I don't know if it's already happened or if it's soon, but get in these refunds while you can. This is one of those things in your business that doesn't take you any time. You can literally set this up in a few minutes, and they're going to give you their first few $100s totally for free. So if you're not doing this, you should be doing it. If you're using another tool, you can stack Getida on top of it. Okay, Viably is a financing company, so cash flow is king when it comes to Amazon businesses. So if you need financing as a seller, if you have some history already, you can scan the QR code on the screen and learn more about Viably. They've been growing super fast. They've taken on a really significant amount of investment money, and they've helped a lot of our students grow very quickly. So if cash is a constraint, I'd highly recommend reaching out to the team over at Viably. And then we have Carbon 6 as well. Carbon 6 has also really been growing a lot over the past few years. You'll probably know about them through the inventory management tool called SoStocked and the external Google traffic platform tool called PixelMe, which is really helpful for pulling an extra lever in terms of PPC. They have a lot of other tools. This is a software aggregator. So they're buying up other software companies, rolling them all in. And I'm just giving like a very quick sampling over to all of the different tools that Carbon 6 has. Actually, I think they just announced some recent acquisitions that are really, I heard a rumor of one that they're going to acquire recently, and it's just top notch. So this is a good company. They've got a handful of really smart people in the industry that they brought into the company, and go scan the QR code, go give Carbon 6 a look. We'll have to update these slides to talk specifically, I think, more about some of the tools in their suite, but really good. And this is coming from someone who works at a software company, Data Dive. Like, I don't view Carbon 6 as a competitor. Their set of tools is fantastic, and I can't encourage you to go and check them out enough. There's going to be something in their software stack that you're going to use. So go and check those out. That's everything that I have today. Looks like we do have a couple more questions here. So John is asking, in Televere product opinion, which is better? Try them all out for yourself. Next week, we're going to cover all 3. So we'll cover Pixfu, product opinion, and IntelliV. I was just in New York. I shot content in person with Peter Paul. Great guy. Love his approach. It's more complicated and has a more tricky UI than Pixfu and Product Opinion. Product Opinion has some really cool features. Like, they've got like this 3-second test. They've got this variationizer tool that helps you create main images. Pixfu is near and dear to my heart because I used to work with them. I love the founders. I love Justin and John. Their UI is beautiful. It's easy to use. They've expanded to international marketplaces. So each one has a slightly different value prop. They're all trying to accomplish something that's similar, but with slightly different approaches. You also should think that like Pixfu isn't just for ecom. They work heavily with game developers and like general marketing as well. So it's not all Amazon FBA, whereas I think Product Opinion and IntelliV are very specifically for Amazon FBA. Not saying that doesn't make them as good. I think Pixfu's reach is just a little bigger. So I'm not going to say which one is better. I would say that there's a code for each of them with seller systems. I think the code for all of them is seller systems, and it gives you some kind of discount. So join the session next week, and we'll be using all 3 next week, and you can decide for yourself. I recommend trying them all out and make the decision for yourself. Any discount for Data Dive subscribers? Brooke, I think we can make that happen. Let me know in the chat. Yeah, let me know in the chat. What's what would be the price that would make that work for you? And maybe we can do it. Just suggest a number, and yeah, maybe we'll do it. We'll almost certainly have a discount for Data Dive subscribers, though, because we just covered our CTR and CVR workflow, and reality is we want people to get a lot of value out of what we're teaching here. We want that it's going to help them use Data Dive more. So I don't know if it'll be free, but yeah, let us know down in the chat what's a good discount. And if you think that this was helpful, imagine that next week is going to be like 4 to 5 times as helpful. So what would you pay for that? Okay. Depending on what you're measuring and doing and tell me part opinion. Yeah, that's a good advice there. Can't find the masterclass in the Inner Circle Facebook page. Look like that's been resolved. Yes, Carbon 6 has a lot of fantastic people. Tim Jordan being one of them. Vanessa is a gangster when it comes to listing optimization and catalog backend. I talked to her last week in New York and learned a lot. She had a whole presentation on how the future of creatives is not just about like pulling your levers on PPC, but having different creatives, ad creatives for like, in that cat example, the busy professional, the cat lover, I don't remember what our third avatar is, but like each of these people would see slightly different ad creatives. That's the future. Andres, good night, everyone. It's late in Germany. Have a good election night. We'll see what happens. It's going to be exciting either way. Thank you for joining, and thank you for staying up late. I know you're a few hours ahead over in EU. This is saying, I hope Trump is triumphant. Brooke is saying half off. I will see what we can do, Brooke, or free. Okay, I like that too. I would suggest 50% off for Data Dive subs. But remember, folks, it's free for Inner Circle, so jump on now. Okay. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. If I can get 50% off for Data Dive users, I'll ask about that as soon as we get off this call. And then if that does work out, you'll get an email towards the end of this week where you can join and instead of paying $200, get it for $100. Oh, and Andy's saying Georgia is being declared now, so this is a perfect time to wrap up. Thanks so much for joining, everyone, and I hope to see many of you back next week. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.